I'm John Batchelor. Gordon Chang is here, and we're keen on Washington's response to the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, to look from the photographs, of young people and their seniors gathering in Hong Kong to protest the betrayal of promises made about democracy, a critical ideology for the 21st century if the United States and our allies are to be successful. And coincidentally, the defense minister of China and the Foreign Minister of China were in Washington today, October 1st, National Day, the day after, in Hong Kong, being feted by the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of State, looking forward to the visit by President Obama to China in November. Scott Harold, political scientist at the RAND Corporation, joins right now. Scott, a very good evening to you. You're in Washington. This suggests, this coincidence, that at the state-to-state, military-to-military level, they're not paying attention, especially to the upset of the students in Hong Kong. However, how is Washington regarding these protests, peaceful protests, against a regime that has betrayed promises to these young people? Good evening to you, Scott.
Good evening to you, John and Gordon, and your listeners around the world. I think Washington regards the protests in Hong Kong as wholly legitimate and as the right of people to express themselves through collective action, through public speech, peacefully. And I think that the opportunity to have Foreign Minister Wang Yi visit and hear from Secretary Kerry firsthand that the United States regards cooperation with China as important, but also the upholding of universal values such as democracy and human rights to be important also. That I think that's an extremely important message and an opportune time to deliver it, especially on China's National Day.
Scott, how do the Chinese view American statements on Hong Kong? I've seen that they've said that we want foreign powers to butt out. Do they actually say that in private to the American counterparts, or is there, basically the private and public messages are the same?
Well, I would caveat, Gordon, of course, I've not been in any of these meetings, so I can't answer definitively, but certainly the Chinese government has sought to characterize all sorts of problems that stem directly from Chinese government policy itself as in fact stemming from the malign intentions of never named but always vaguely hinted at foreign powers that are deliberately manipulating the innocent and easily beguiled masses of China against the Chinese Communist Party. That's a ridiculous statement that the American government or any other government could cause the uproar in Hong Kong. It's so evidently obvious to anyone who looks at it that this is a result of Beijing's misguided policies there, of essentially promising one thing, that the Hong Kong people can have universal suffrage in 2017 and can elect their own leadership, and then ripping the rug out from under them through a National People's Congress Standing Committee statement that says Beijing will actually get to pick the candidates for that election. So I think that their characterization of it in public is clearly intended to frame the issue in such a way that will allow Beijing to hold on to as much legitimacy domestically as possible by portraying foreigners as the cause of China's problems. What they say to Americans behind closed doors, I don't know, but I suspect that they can't believe that that message would ever be saleable with an audience that knows what it's doing and knows it's not involved in those activities.
If we can shift the focus just a little bit, how does Beijing view these protests? Are they going to allow them to continue and hope they'll fizzle out, or will they do something more vigorous, as People's Daily today hinted about sending the troops over the border? How do you see the Chinese attitudes towards the protests?
I think it's important for those of us who are looking at this from the outside to remember two things. First, the Chinese Communist Party did not manage to hold on to power after 65 years and tens of millions of people dead by not being ruthless. This is a political party that's willing to use massive amounts of violence to hold on to political power. On the other hand, they also seek to leverage their reputation for violence in ways that will magnify their influence and dissuade people from contesting their power. It's worth remembering that in 2003, around the time of the failed national security law that was being talked about in Hong Kong, as well as in 2012 when Beijing sought to impose a form of national patriotic education that would have highlighted the Communist Party as the glorious, successful purveyor of everything that has happened to China that's good over the last 60 some years, that the people of Hong Kong came into the streets, made their opinions known, and Beijing backed down. Beijing does not have any effective endgame that results from the use of massive force around on a model like Tiananmen. If Beijing invades Hong Kong and uses military force or paramilitary force to kill people, it will suffer enormous condemnation as well as a loss of material wealth as the city of Hong Kong flees, and the remainder basically rises up in long-term.
Scott Harold, political scientist at the Rand Corporation, Gordon Chang of Forbes.com. I'm John Batchelor.